Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the first episode of Teddy and Max with your facts. I'm your co-host Teddy Schellbach,
Co-host Max Trahan here.
and let's kick off Teddy and Max with the facts. January 4th, 2020. So first, our MVPs, Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. Just what are your thoughts, Max? And I'll share mine after.
Yeah, so throughout this season, like pretty much I thought Patrick Mahomes was gonna run away with it. And then around week 12 to week 13, Aaron Rodgers really just started lighting teams up. And I really just didn't believe in the Packers, especially them getting the 1 seed, overtaking the Saints late in the year. But I just think this team is clicking on both sides of the ball. Their defense is definitely improved. And a team that I thought they might have struggled with, the Titans, especially with their, I thought subpar rush defense. They really stepped up, and I think now that they secured the 1 seed, I think Aaron Rodgers is the front runner with Mahomes at 2 for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Definitely benching Mahomes this week doesn't help his case. Aaron was able to jump ahead to 10 more touchdowns on the season.
Yeah,
Mahomes not being able to do anything about it definitely doesn't help. As far as MVP is concerned, I think Rodgers locked it this week. The Bears, not a great team, but a good defense. And just he scorched him again. I mean, he's familiar with the Bears and all that, but still just an impressive game to watch. There were a couple bad throws there, but there was a big drop by Marquez Valdez-Scantling deep downfield, which would have gone for like another 70-yard
yeah,
touchdown. But
definitely.
that was a big drop. But outside of that, I think statistically, there's no other answer than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I would say you have to give it to Aaron Rodgers. If this week was another, or if this season was another 2 or 3 weeks longer, I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen got more consideration,
Yeah,
considering the dude is carrying that offense in every aspect, making throws that people really didn't think he could make. And
yeah. I mean, he changed his whole throwing motion this offseason. Before the year, he wouldn't throw. He was only throwing with his upper body, and just this offseason, he was able to use his hips more. So that opens up a lot for accuracy and just
Definitely.
on the field or on the ball. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my Bluetooth.
Um,
That off.
and then in terms of offensive player of the year, I think if you don't give it to Devontae Adams, you have to give it to Derrick Henry, right? Dude rushed for 2,000, almost 2,050 yards, almost 17 touchdowns. The dude just carried that Titans offense and really opened up running lanes and throwing lanes for Ryan Tannehill,
Yeah,
who
he really.
in Miami, obviously,
I
no
think
one no one
he
thought
turned.
he was capable of.
Yeah, I think he turned Ryan Tannehill into a potentially top 8 quarterback just from the way he's playing. I don't know if Tannehill can go out and do it in many other places, but just from just a statistic and just how they play, he's turned Tannehill into a pretty good quarterback and definitely worth the 110 million he was given this offseason. Um,
Definitely.
I'm with you, King Henry or Devontae Adams for Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, Devontae Adams top 5 in catches and yards, and led the league in touchdowns, but did it in only 13 and a half games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that needs to be taken note of too. One of the only receivers to go for 1,000 yards and 18 touchdown passes. Maybe the only. I forgot the stat there. It's one or the other, but still super remarkable and definitely something to be looked at. But 2,000 yards. I mean, it's for the season.
Yeah.
Even last season shouldn't
You
matter.
can't not give
Back
it
to
to him.
back years, 2,000
Yeah.
yards. And defensive player of the year. I think it's what are your thoughts? I think it's between T.J. Watt, Xavier Howard, and Aaron Darnold.
I'm gonna say I think Donald's gonna win it just because he's the brand name and everything. But
Mhm.
someone who's not looked around the league as maybe the best character, Miles Garrett has had a sneaky,
Sneaky.
almost better year than Aaron Donald,
He
and
started off
he's
really
someone
hot.
who
He started off really hot.
he yeah. So I would say that Garrett's just people don't like him because his altercation with Rudolph, and
Mhm.
he admits that that was a complete wrong action to take. But The dude's really changed his image. He was
Really?
nominated for
You got the
Walter
Walter
Payton of the
Payton.
Year.
Yeah, you're
Um, Tearing it up. Unfortunately, he had to miss a couple games. I think he was in like a COVID. Either he had COVID or he was in contact trace. But the guy was lighting it up when he was on the field, and he should really be in consideration. And someone who I also want to give recognition to is DeForest Buckner.
yeah.
Um,
He
he
changed the
has
Colts.
transformed the Colts defense since he got there. I forget if it was this offseason he was traded from the Niners,
Yeah,
but that
well,
Colts defense really just rallies around
he was
him.
a
And
staple of that Niners defense last year, which brought him to the Super Bowl.
yeah, people
Um,
forget about DeForest Buckner on that defense. They only remember like Nick Bosa and forget the other guy's name. But yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I like Xavier Howard a lot for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's picked off a lot of good quarterbacks. He's not exactly shut down the way someone like Jalen Ramsey or Jair Alexander is, but he's been a big part of that Dolphins team being as successful as they were at 10-6, especially
Yeah.
with the extra team. I would have liked to see them in the playoffs. But
It was funny also yesterday, like on Red Zone, JC Jackson tied him with 9 INTs, and then almost the next minute, Xavier Howard gets a pick and one ups him.
yeah,
Um,
Barkley
but
made some throws though. He made some really nice throws there to Gabriel Davis. Some
yeah,
deep balls.
definitely.
All right, that's next one. So back to the Dolphins. Is 2 the answer, or they do have that Texans number
Yeah.
4 pick or 3 pick?
Number 3, or maybe number 4. I can't remember.
Top
Definitely.
5.
Yeah, top.
And Tua yesterday playing really against his first real competitive football team didn't look too great. Granted, it is a rookie and it was his first time doing that, but he hasn't wowed me with anything he's done. He can't go. I haven't seen him been able to go over the top or anything. Really, he's made some plays with his legs, but nothing that particularly wows me
Yeah,
as a top 10 overall pick should.
definitely. Just the eye test to he's not fast enough to outrun these linemen. He's not his arm talent's not talented enough to squeeze it into these tight windows that we're seeing now. He's used to the Alabama offense where he had, I don't know, like everyone, like he had Ruggs, he had Judy, Devontae Smith,
And
Waddle.
yeah,
These guys were,
consistent. He also had a consistent Alabama rushing attack,
yeah,
which
and
the Dolphins don't have. And he said he sees no competitive difference between college and the NFL. I don't know if you heard him say that, but
well, I was even watching the Oakland game, or I guess Las Vegas game. I think it was a Saturday night game, and I think it was Kurt Warner who mentioned it. But the NFL windows and college windows are just completely different. When
yeah,
you're throwing to guys that are open by numbers of yards, it's much easier. And something that Ryan Fitzpatrick was working on with him. I read a couple articles about this. He has to learn how to throw the ball to contested windows. He has someone like Devontae Parker, Jasicki. You just throw the ball in their area. Their catch radius is ridiculous. So they're going to make the play. He's just got to learn. He's got to
he can't
get
zip
the ball out of his hand, catch
zip
it
it.
on the ball.
He's got to learn to zip it.
Yeah.
He's got to learn to zip it and put it over the top.
Yeah. And unless I think it's too early to move on from a top 5 pick in one season, especially someone as dynamic as Tua, as we saw in his freshman campaign in the championship game. But definitely, if he doesn't get it right this season, I think you're gonna have to move on from him, and that sucks. But you have to understand that he wasn't the guy, and that's okay. You have a great team, you have a great coach, but that quarterback piece, we don't know yet. And you give him one more season, see what he's got.
Yeah, I mean, so what? They'll have the 17th overall pick, probably best team out of the playoffs.
I think it might have been 18, but yeah.
All right, 17th or 18th. I mean, do you try to wait for somebody like Trey Lance to fall and try and just pick somebody up, or maybe wait for the second round?
Honestly, I'm not drafting a quarterback if I'm the Dolphins.
You try to give a couple more pieces for him to
give him a couple more pieces. Maybe
Devonta Smith there to work.
Yeah, Devontae Smith. I mean, he might fall to 18, but at 3, maybe even someone like Jamar Chase out of LSU who took a year off. I know the Eagles are looking into him too, but Definitely give him another piece. I think it's too early to move on from a 21-year-old quarterback or 22-year-old quarterback.
He's only really had one bad game.
The one thing though is that he doesn't have that one quality that separates him from any other quarterback, which I'm
Yeah.
a little concerned about.
I mean, I look at other rookies like Herbert and Burrow. And after the first 3 games, I could tell that these guys were legit. Each of them probably, I don't know if they had a 3-touchdown game under the belt at that point, but they had one of that or a 300-yard game under the belt. And I was pretty impressed. I mean, Tua had over 300 yesterday, but that was on 58 passes.
58%.
Yeah. Just like, I mean, you see Aaron Rodgers throwing, he hasn't had more than 30 pass attempts in the last 3 weeks. And he's been mid 200s, high 200s every time.
Definitely.
Like, if you give that, he'd be thrown for 500, 600, just if you were to double it based off of pass attempts. But
Gotcha.
I don't know. I wouldn't give that 300-yard game. You see Herbert doing it off of, and Burrow doing it off of 45. Burrow did throw the ball a lot, though. They were really relying on him when he was around.
Definitely.
All right. So playoff predictions. This isn't an official bracket. The second round isn't yet determined, but it's what we could pull up.
So who do you think's coming out of the NFC/AFC?
So so I'm assuming the 1 seeds will end up playing the lowest seed that advances. I'm assuming that's how they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
So let's say Saints win, Seattle wins, Bucks win. Let's say all the high seeds win. Bills-Colts game is going to be interesting.
Yep.
But I think the Colts will win.
You think the Colts will beat the Bills?
I think the Bills are one of the only teams that can beat the Chiefs in general, the AFC or NFC, just in the league. I think that team and the Packers are really going to be the only 2 teams that can really slow down the Chiefs. But I don't know. I can see Tennessee giving the Chiefs a hard time, maybe Baltimore. But AFC, I can't see either being anyone but the Bills or the Chiefs.
Yep.
Maybe the Browns if they can play the way they do, their best football. But when you lose to the Jets, and you can't really be banking on that too much.
Definitely. I think you mentioned it, like the Bills are just so dynamic. That defense for me, I've been high on the Bills for a while.
I like their secondary a lot.
Their secondary is good, but very inconsistent. And situationally, I take that's a huge part of my decision making in terms of power rankings. I think since around week 10 or so, their situational defensive football, like third downs, red zone, definitely improved a lot from the beginning of the season where they couldn't get off the field. And you see the contrast with Tennessee, right? Like last year, Tennessee was one of the best third down defenses. This year, I think they were historically bad.
No, historically bad defense this year.
Yeah. So it's just if a team like the Bills can really just get off the field on third down, give the ball to Josh Allen, who can control the game just like Patrick Mahomes can, right? Great offensive coordinator. That's a really dynamic team, right? And then I look at a team like the Ravens, right? Those are the only 2 teams to me that can have a realistic shot at beating the Chiefs. The Ravens might not have the same passing efficiency this year. Just teams are honing in on Lamar and his legs. But if Lamar gets outside the pocket, I don't know if there's anyone better. But the dual threat to run for 40 yards or pass it downfield for 50, you need dynamic playmakers to beat the Chiefs, and you need it for 60 minutes. And we saw teams last year play for 30 minutes against the Chiefs, but they couldn't quite play 4 quarters. And I think you need a dynamic, game-changing quarterback like a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson to really take down Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Yeah, definitely. And now in the NFC, I think the way Green Bay is playing right now, and I'm not being biased, it's just they don't look like many teams can stop them. The only Seattle and Tampa Bay, I think, are the 2 teams that could. I don't think the Saints offense can. I mean, the Saints played us early in the year when we were a lot worse, and they were 1-2, so that was at their worst. But we still beat them. I don't know.
Okay.
But also we got creamed by Tampa Bay, but also it's in Lambeau now, so the Saints have to play outdoors in the elements. But Tom Brady is someone who played up in cold New England.
Foxborough, yeah.
I don't think the weather and Antonio Brown, Pittsburgh. I mean, and the rest of the guys have played in Tampa Bay basically their whole careers, the notable players. But I don't know. I see Tom Brady being able to go in there and play in the cold, and same with
Definitely.
Seattle.
I
But
would say, unlike the AFC, where I think most of these, honestly, all of these games are kind of toss ups, right? Like, who knows how Tennessee's going to come out? Pittsburgh's still a very good team. Buffalo and the Colts are like a very good matchup, right? I feel like you can assume who are going to win the NFC games. I'm just going to go ahead and say the Bucks are going to beat Washington, right?
yeah,
Um, no golf. I don't see LA having a chance against Russell Wilson, and the Saints are just too good.
well. The Seahawks almost lost to C.J. Beathard last week.
Yeah, but I
The
don't
games I
I
give
don't think they took over the game when it mattered. I just
you,
don't see them after losing to Seattle with golf. I don't see them beating them without golf, especially again in Seattle, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then you look in the second round, and I really think that Tampa Bay game might be the toughest matchup for a Packers team, right? Where Tampa Bay shut down the run, they clogged the passing lane so that Rodgers couldn't really escape the pocket, and when he did, he was harassed. Um, didn't really make great decisions with the football. I trust him at home, um, but it's really going to come down to how will Tom Brady and that Bucks rushing attack, honestly, even more so than that passing attack. If they can establish the run in Lambeau, I think it might be a tough afternoon for Rodgers coming back from
yeah,
a honed in secondary, right? And the Bucks, once they know they can just rush the passer, they become a different defense. You don't see a lot of teams coming back on the Bucks. So if they can get a lead, I think they have a shot. If not, I agree with you. I don't think they'll lose. And then the only other team I think can beat them is maybe the Saints in the NFC.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, I mean maybe the Saints, but you saw just about the establishing the run game. Chicago was trying to do that early last game, and they looked like they were. I mean, David Montgomery first 5 carries is averaging something like 8 yards or something. It looks like that after through the first quarter, it looked like that was going to be the whole game. But just over time, the defense started to play better and better, and then create some turnovers and lockdown. So if that defense can play that those last 3 quarters of football for a full four,
Yeah,
I think I think Green Bay is going to be really hard to beat,
definitely.
whether it's in Lambeau or in Tampa for the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Next. All right, so NBA power rankings. First couple weeks through, yeah, it's a little too early to tell.
yeah,
To see really what's going on or what the season's going to be. But yeah. I don't
definitely. I
know.
think
Your list.
yeah. So I didn't really go off too much of like record so far, just because it's a long season. A couple games isn't going to kill you like it could in the NFL, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and there's no real home court, right? I still have the Lakers as the favorite. I don't think they're particularly coming out trying too hard. When they do try, they blitz teams, and it can get ugly quick. Um, and then you have a team like the Nuggets. I'm still very high on them. A lot of young talent. Michael Porter Jr. is very good. Jokic is averaging, I think, almost 20, 14, and 15, which is absurd numbers. Um, and that whole team is just very cohesive, and no one wants to play in Denver, right? With the altitude and how they play, very fast paced. And then I think a team that crept up is kind of the Warriors. I didn't really see them coming into the season with much left in the tank, especially with Steph another year, no Clay Thompson. Um, but that team is really starting to gel a little bit in the last couple of days. Obviously, last night Steph dropped 62 points, um, and I think that team can really hone in. If they can hone in defensively, they could be a tough out in the postseason for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not as sold on the Nuggets. I I think I just don't have a good feeling about them if they do make the playoffs. I just don't see them lasting. Last year they fought their way through, but I don't see that happening this year. I like the Magic a lot. I think he's going to be a top. Or no, shoot, I meant the Mavericks. I don't know what I was thinking. The
Yeah,
Mavericks, not the
yeah,
Magic. Not
yeah.
the Magic. That is my fault. My fault. My fault. But no, the Mavericks, Luca, and Kristaps is playing well. They're just a tough team to beat at number two. They're just a really competitive team. The Clippers, I don't know. I mean, they can really fall apart. We saw them get blown out by like, what was it? They were down by 50 at the half. It ended in 70.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't even know you were.
But and then number four, the Hawks. I think um Trae Young, he's starting to become like he's going to be a perennial generational talent. I loved him in college, and I love him even more now. I
Yeah,
think his range is Curry-esque, but he's got better handling. More like Curry has great handling, but I don't think he's as elusive as Trae Young is.
interesting. I would just say I do like the Suns a lot, so I can appreciate you putting them at 5. They've
Yeah,
had a good
I think
start
that
to the
Chris
season.
Paul trade in the offseason,
Yeah,
I think that was really good for them because it brings a veteran talent and not
fair.
just the old veteran that
Yeah,
used to.
I don't think they can battle with a team like come postseason. I think they're coming out strong. They need to show that they can gel as an offense. But when it comes into the postseason, I don't see Chris Paul being a number one, maybe even a number 2 right now. Devin Booker is playing very well, but I don't really trust him as the lone real scorer on that team. Um, Especially in a matchup maybe with the Clippers in the first round, maybe second round, even a Nuggets team, a Lakers team. I don't really trust them, right? And even like the Mavericks can really shoot the ball efficiently. I don't know if they played on I think on opening night and it was a close game without Porzingis, right? So when Porzingis comes back, that'll be a very tough matchup.
Yeah,
Uh, but I do like your rankings as well.
yeah. Also, just a quick note about the Cavs here. I like Colin Sexton a lot too.
Yeah, he's
He's
playing very well this
he's
season.
balling out of control. All right, NFL. Uh, I mean, basically, it's playoff time. I think I don't know why you got the Packers at 3 there, but
I just don't see them beating a team like the Bills or the Chiefs. They're just too dynamic. Um, I think the Packers, like possession by possession, if they can somehow turn it into um, that kind of game where they slow the game down for Rodgers, maybe they have a shot. But I think that the Bills and Chiefs are just too dynamic right now. And the Packers offense, aside from a couple big plays a game, have long possessions, and honestly, those can lead to turnovers, right? Like the longer you possess the ball, that's great. You keep your defense off the field, you keep the other team's defense on the field, but it's hard to execute in the red zone, right? And we were talking earlier about a Bills defense that makes a living off the turnovers and red zone efficiency and third down efficiency. I just think not having like a dynamic playmaker outside of really Devonte Adams um, might be tough for this offense.
yeah, and I'd say for this list in particular at this point, I think anything outside of the top 6 doesn't really matter. It's not because the league has been cut to 14 at this point. There are 14
Yeah.
teams left in the league. I don't think on either side. I think the Titans, I'm banking on their defense coming together and playing the way they did last year in the playoffs
Yep.
because it's a similar team. But I mean, we're pretty similar in our top 6. I got the
Yep.
Ravens just hanging outside.
Yep.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Steelers?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that team has a shot of coming together. And if they do, it'll be a tough out for I think the Browns in the first round. I don't really see the Browns beating them, to be honest. In
Yeah,
uh in Pittsburgh, that'll be a tough game at Heinz Field in January. No one really wants to play there, right? But obviously the Browns are getting a lot of media attention. They might be an overall better team, but I don't see them with the lack of playoff
They
experience,
struggled
Big
last
Ben.
week or yesterday with the Steeler backups too.
Yeah, it was a tough matchup for them, and I just don't see. I think the Steelers really hone in on the Browns' rushing attack. They'll have Big Ben back. Hopefully, they can establish a running game, and if they can, I don't really see the Browns staying in this game, but I see a score maybe like 27-23.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a defensive battle. I don't see either quarterback particularly going off or really stretching the field.
Yeah,
But
agreed.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's anybody's game. But I like if the Browns play their best football, I think their best football is certainly top four in their conference. I
Yeah,
think they're better. They're the best team in their division when they're playing their best football. I think they beat the Steelers and the Ravens, even though the Ravens did beat them playing both of their best football. That game was
yeah,
crazy.
dude. That I think the Ravens are a
I think
sneaky.
that
People forget that they were considered by far the best team in the league last year. So I
yeah,
think it's too early to call it quits on that team.
yeah. If the Ravens can play like that, they're gonna be hard to beat. I mean, oh, sidetrack here. Was that game of the year?
So far, yeah, definitely.
Or yeah, regular season, best game of the regular season.
For sure. Yeah. That Las Vegas Dolphins game though was up there too.
That was crazy too. Yeah.
It's magic.
Always. Fitz goat. All right, on to the next. So positions of the week. So teams with the best rushing attack. So you can do your list first, and I'll
Yeah. So
counter.
I just think the Ravens just they pride themselves on the rushing attack like no other team, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I
they
mean, the Titans
they
too.
maybe
Derrick Henry getting 34 carries.
yeah, Derrick Henry definitely, but you see Tannehill making these third down throws. The Ravens will run it down your throat until you have to just commit everyone to the run, which opens the door to Lamar getting outside the pocket, making plays with his legs
Mhm.
and his arm, right? And they really kind of revolutionized the new modern NFL running attack. Mostly out of the shotgun, you have to force that end to commit to either the running back or the quarterback, right? And they have triple options with RPOs. It's very difficult to stop that. And then you see like the Browns, who Baker Mayfield doesn't play well without that rushing attack, and that rushing attack, if they can establish it, obviously they're I think 11-5 this season, and in years past without that rushing attack, they're not Baker Mayfield at least is
Yeah.
not a quarterback. But you also see that with the Titans,
Is,
so it's hard to gauge.
is Nick Chubb the number 3 back in the league?
To me, I am
Out of
not.
Cook and Henry.
Yeah, outside of Cook and Henry, I still have McCaffrey when he's healthy. I
Yeah,
still have Saquon when he's healthy. I'm not as high on Chubb as a lot of people. I still probably have him top 10 maybe, but he's I think there are a lot of other running backs that I would take ahead of him. Someone like Miles Sanders out of Philly, I like a lot too.
yeah.
There are just a lot of great running backs, and I don't know what he does even better than, to be honest, Kareem Hunt, who's a very good
Yeah, I
catcher.
think Kareem Hunt should go be a starting running back elsewhere. I really like seeing that man run the football. He's fun to watch. Um,
I'd also definitely go Kamara over Chubb. I think
yeah,
he's
definitely. I see why you put the Saints on. Obviously, Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara are a pretty good duo. I put the Cardinals on because I think about people. I think people somewhat forget about what they were doing at the beginning of the season. I mean, if we're talking just a collective season standpoint, what Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, and Edmonds were able to do was put a lot of points up on the board, which is what matters in football. And then I also have the Packers on there. Just they have three backs. All of them can do it all. And they're all unique in their own different ways. Where Aaron Jones, he can still break tackles. He's up there on in the stats for yards after contact, but he can break tackles. But he's also a really good speed guy. Where Jamal Williams is like the perfect blend. And then you have AJ Dillon, who showed himself out on the Blizzard in Lambeau against Tennessee
yeah,
a couple weeks ago, who was just a bowling ball. And when it comes time for playoff football, I mean, having running backs that can do all three all fully capable, I think
Yeah.
is
Not to kill your Packers, but when I watched that Colts Packers game, I really saw the Colts rushing attack
yeah.
just obliterate the Packers running
Defense was
defense.
weaker then. They've come alive since.
No, they definitely come alive. I just think when I think of the Colts, I think of Jonathan Taylor, Naheem Hines.
Jonathan
I
Taylor had
guess
a
Mack is
monster
out for the
game.
year.
Yeah, monster
Um,
game after the year.
People forget that Jonathan Taylor, I think, is the third leading rusher this year too, behind Cook and
Is he
Derek.
really? He didn't have a lot of carries to start the year.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot. I think he finished with over 1,100 or close to 1,200 yards.
Yeah, I mean
Bunch
Hines,
of
Marlon Mack.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mac might be out for a little, but
No,
that
no, no, no,
combination of
I'm just saying in a healthy locker
yeah,
room. Max out for. I think he's done for the year. Is he not?
I think yeah, I agree. I think he is. And then that offensive line is just studs across the board. I forget their center. I like him a lot, but obviously you have Quinn Nelson. The tackles are good, not great, but that middle of the offensive line is just studs. Just beasts on the line.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with the Browns. The Browns have a top 5 offensive line, which has helped Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. There's one point late in the season, I'm forgetting what week it was, where they were both top 10 in rushing yards.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was probably around week 12 or something like that. I haven't really checked since where they're both at, but I made a note of it. But we're rolling the next. So Max, last
Yeah.
time, a lot of questions. What happened?
Definitely. So I guess like I'll ask you, is
Yeah.
tanking bad for sports?
Um. Yeah. I mean, as someone who likes the New York Giants, I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm from New York, Packer fan first, but the Giants I'll always pull for. But as it just stinks to see that like one man has the ability to disrupt that whole season, all of your hopes, all of that instead of 22 or 33 if you want to count special teams. But I'd like to leave it up to the players whether or not you decide if you're going to make the team, make the playoffs. You know, it's not up to the coach to just say. I mean, maybe the team wants a better draft pick, but I mean,
Yeah.
you're still going to get a pretty good one.
So yeah, I'll address last night's game after, but overall tanking I think is one of the I would say downfalls of a lot of American sports where you have this drafting system where you're guaranteed this talent. It's not the same in soccer because you're paying for your talent and you're developing them from a young age. But in the NFL with no draft lottery, it's really there's no incentive the NFL really gives. It's just always been common courtesy to play your hearts out, as we saw with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
I don't know if last night was particularly tanking. Doug Peterson's a very weird guy when it comes to like playing his players. Weird decisions with managing Wentz this season. He could have pulled Wentz earlier or later. No one really knows. A lot of ambiguity in his answers too. So I don't really know what he was going for. Seemed like an obvious tank for me, but who knows with Doug Peterson. But in terms of last night, to be fair, no one thinks the Giants are going anywhere. Let's get that clear.
Well, I mean,
Dude,
we're in the
they
playoffs.
won 6 games. They won 6 games. If the playoffs were
Obviously,
that
no,
like
at
important to
six
them,
and
they could have won
at
more
six,
than one game in their
yeah,
last 4 weeks, right? I think there's a lot that goes into it that um, Giants fans don't really like. If it was a team that was 12-4, I would be like, oh, that sucks. Like they really just played their hearts
no,
out.
yeah.
But it doesn't. Like the Giants, they weren't going anywhere. No one thought they were going anywhere.
No, I can't complain at 6-10 about not making the playoffs. It's just like I'd rather have the ball be in Jalen Hurts' hands, you know, and it stinks. And I'm sure the rest of the country would too. You know, everybody wants to see that good primetime football game. It stinks even more that it was primetime. I mean, you get the whole country watching. Something's on the line, and you just give everybody the answer, or half the people the answer they're expecting. Like, all right, Skins win, off we go. You know,
Yeah,
it's just I don't
definitely.
know. And what does that mean for his job? I mean, I guess he's going to stay. He's a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yeah. So there've been like a lot of reports, obviously recently with him and Wentz. We'll get into that a little bit later. But So how do you think leagues can avoid the franchise's temptation to tank for these draft picks?
So like I think you can do 3 brackets, Um like 10 to the bottom 10 teams, you mix them up, you do some sort of lottery, and then you do that with the next 10 teams at the end of the year. You mix them up, you do some sort of lottery, and you do it with the next 10 teams, and then and then the Super Bowl remains. The Super Bowl winner can get the last pick, and
Sure.
I think that's
Yeah,
a good way to do it. I
I
mean,
definitely like
bad
that system. Yeah.
yeah, I think bad teams can still get good players that way. Any
Yeah.
top 10 pick is going to better your franchise. Hopefully, if you're smart and you make the right decision, and any top 10 pick has the potential to do so. Where I mean, I wouldn't see that in between like a 10 to 20 round or top 10 to 20 selection, but like a top 10 pick, like I don't know, any team would be happy to have it, and it would prevent teams from wanting to lose. No one's
Yeah.
gonna be mad if that's in place. I mean, I guess teams that are historically bad might be, but
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with your system. Maybe just keeping the playoff teams like in order.
yeah, maybe find a way to keep that separate. Maybe do like if it's a
Definitely.
14 team playoff, maybe do the top 8, bottom 8, and then the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah. Definitely. I agree with that though. Like
Something like
there's got
that.
to be something.
You kind of group them on success, and the ones who have the least are in their own little bracket, and they get the good picks. But that's all.
As you see, Sam Hinkie in the right corner. He was like obviously regarded as the founder of the tanking and was infamous for it. But it really in the NBA they've done a really good job of kind of mixing it up, right? And with the whole lottery system, even worsening the odds for the worst teams, so they don't
Yeah,
monopolize those top picks. The NFL's gotta do something. You can't have teams like the Jets just going 2-14, who I think could have easily been maybe even a 7-9 team if they were better coached.
yeah. Case is gone though. He's
Yeah,
gone. That's
and the Jaguars just clearly just could could care less, in my opinion, about
yeah,
winning these games. But they have that top pick, and they get Trevor Lawrence, and this season is a success for them, right? And there's nothing the league has done to incentivize not tanking. But they should look and see if there's anything they could do about it because it's
it's time.
something that will
Yeah,
lose money for the league in the long run.
it's time. I mean, who wants to watch the Jets play? Once they were 0-13,
Yeah, no one
nobody
cares.
wanted to watch them play. No, for 15 seconds, where people were like, "Oh my God, the Jets won! That's a miracle." But
Yeah.
still, like, oh, they just don't want to win
They
anymore.
just lost the pick. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
as a Jets fan, you were rooting for them to lose, and that sucks.
Yeah, you should be rooting for. Yeah, I mean, the way the lottery's done in the NBA, like something similar to that, where like maybe similar to the bracket system, but maybe like the second, third, or fourth place team, maybe like worst team has some sort of like incentive. So like at the end of even at the end of the season, you're not like chasing games to win.
Yeah,
And even when you're bad, you're going to want to win all the games you get because you don't know how many you're going to lose. I want to.
definitely.
But yeah, definitely liking that. All right, final segment. Fact or fiction? Tom Brady is the top 5 QB in the NFL today.
Going to the postseason, the Bucks obviously will need him to be. But I do think there's no other 4 quarterbacks I'd want for this Tampa Bay offense right now. He's definitely top 5 in my opinion for winning these, like for taking them to where they want to go, and that's the Super Bowl. No one's better in the postseason than Tom Brady in NFL history, right? So I would definitely say he's entering the postseason top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely starting quarterback next week. Tom Brady's the top 5 guy you want.
Yeah,
Fact. All right, you got this one.
sure. Yeah, Taysom Hill will be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints after Drew Brees retires.
I'll call fact. I mean, I don't know how much Jameis. It might be a contract issue. Maybe he'll want to go sign for some more money elsewhere. I think this is an offseason where some teams are definitely looking for quarterbacks, and Jameis with his LASIK eye surgery might want some more money elsewhere and not a backup contract. But they're only. I mean, for New Orleans Saints, you got Taysom Hill for 16 million. Like it's perfect.
Yeah. I definitely think he will be in the competition. I think Sean Payton likes him a lot more than a lot of other coaches, I think, around the league like him.
I don't
He
think I
sees
don't think
something.
Taysom Hill starts really anywhere else than New
Yeah,
Orleans. Maybe he gets a
I
look
agree.
somewhere as like the same kind of package, maybe with like an Andy Reid or
Yeah.
some
He Sean Payton clearly sees something in him that honestly I don't see a lot
I
in
do.
him, but um I think at the very least he'll be competing with Jameis Winston, and I think he will get the job at least for next season. I don't know long term if he's the answer, but I do agree, especially with Drew Brees. Like a lot of rumors about him calling it quits after the season. I think Taysom Hill starts Week 1 for the Saints in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fact.
All right. Trevor Lawrence will enter the draft and will be selected first overall.
I honestly think, I mean, it's going to be a fact. I don't think he passes up that NFL money. Um, but it's definitely more interesting now that the Jaguars have that first pick. I think the Jets might have been a much cleaner situation. Both
Cleaner.
teams have a lot of cap space, a lot of draft picks. But the Jets, I think, are just a better team as of right now. Neither organization's really proven to get the right coach. Get him under contract and really have him deliver any postseason success, right? Besides the Jaguars had one great year in 2017. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but playing in Jacksonville versus New York, I don't know. Like it's a toss up, but it's not
He's
great.
from Florida
Yeah,
or Georgia. He's from Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
he's from Georgia. I mean, you like the warm weather and all. And honestly, maybe I like it more than New York for him. It's much more quiet. It's not New York. I mean, you and I both know how difficult New York is, even just getting to work.
yeah,
Like for him, it's. I mean, he's obviously not going to live in the city, probably somewhere in New Jersey. But I don't know. Like, I think either they have their ups and downs. They're pretty much opposite franchises when you just look at like a reputation. Jets seem to be this loud, upset franchise, and while the Jaguars fans still are upset, they seem to be like a little more sad. Like
yeah.
it's
The
just
only thing I would say to contradict that is just Trevor Lawrence seems like someone who's very passionate about everything he does. We saw that how he really took a stand and told the NCAA almost like we're playing the season, you're going to make it happen for us, and let's get through the season. And he's
yeah,
very politically active. He likes that kind of. He doesn't seem like someone who's from like a small town who doesn't want that
that's
kind of media presence. He seems like he wants to command, control his narrative, get that media attention, develop his brand. That's the only thing I would make in terms of
yeah.
wanting a big city or like a small town or
That's a
smaller city like Jacksonville. But
that's a good point you make. I'm with you on that. But regardless, fact,
fact, yeah, definitely. Then Lakers will repeat.
fact. I mean, we talked about this a bit earlier, but I mean, it's the same team as last year, basically, just maybe even a little better. You know, Dennis Schroeder was a nice pickup. I
Yeah,
I don't really see any team beating them in the series of seven. I don't see them missing the playoffs.
definitely. I do think they should be favorites. I think it might be harder than people will think. Just LeBron's another year older. I don't know if that'll matter. He's clearly proven that it doesn't so far. AD is really coming into his own. That team is almost, I don't know if they're better than last year, but they're not much worse if they are. Um, but I look at a bunch of teams coming up. I think the Western Conference will be a lot tougher this season, even though it was pretty tough last season.
Yeah,
Then in the East, you have a lot of legit contenders now. I think if the Nets can somehow start playing defense, they have KD and Kyrie who are professional scorers and dominant on the offensive end, right? And
yeah.
then you have the Bucks who just got Drew Holiday. So I think the East, it won't be the Miami Heat again. Unfortunately, I love that team, but they just simply were not talented or big enough to compete with a Lakers team. Um, but I'd like to see some more competition out of the West this year. But as of right now, I do agree they're the favorites. I'm not going to go they will repeat, though. I think that'll be fiction.
All right. Wentz will not be an Eagle next season. Fact. I think the contract is a lot to deal with,
Yep.
but I see him getting reunited with Frank Reich over there in Indianapolis. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe not even Indianapolis, but that contract is going to plague that team for a while if Wentz can't figure it out, and I wouldn't take the chips and say he will.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go fiction. I don't think a team will be able to offer the assets that the Eagles would want in return. Um, Regardless of how bad he played this season, in his first 4 seasons in the league, I think it was pretty easily it was pretty easy to recognize his talent. And I think on any given Sunday, he was probably going to be a top 5 quarterback. Um, this season, when you look at it, I love Jalen Hurts too, and he went 1-3 as a starter, right? So there's a lot of things Jalen Hurts did well. He moved the ball probably better than Carson Wentz this season. Um, but I'm not ready to say that Wentz will not be an Eagle, right? Like there's still a lot that offense needs to get better at. Give Howie Roseman an off season to really just transform that offense. Um, they're gonna have the 6th pick. They're gonna have a bunch of picks in the 2nd round, 3rd round, high picks, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I think unless someone blows them away with a trade offer, which I don't see happening, I think they're going to keep Wentz. I think he'll honestly start next season, and I'm more confused on what Jalen Hurts will be next season, especially after starting these last 4 games.
All right. I like the take.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson is a top 5 QB despite the atrocious record.
I didn't know how much I liked Deshaun Watson until down the stretch this season.
I mean, yeah.
He's someone who is one of the fiercest competitors in the league. He's someone who can always move the ball, dynamic with the ball in his hands, finds these open receivers. And this Texans offense didn't really miss a beat after
It really
last season. It's just their defense is just one of the worst defenses in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson led the league in passing yards. I mean, 7th in touchdowns, 7th in picks, or 7th
Yeah.
for least amount of picks. I mean, that's a tough. I mean, statistically top 5 QB, but the name of the game is win games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you got to do to really. I mean, if your team's going to pay you money, you got to win games. And by no means is it Deshaun's fault for uh for losing these games. I mean, the Titans game yesterday was absolutely nuts. What he was able to do in that second half, they were down bad.
Yeah.
And he just absolutely exploded that offense. But the
Yeah.
Titans offense was able to come back alive again in the 4th. And
Yeah. So, like, not to put you on the spot, but maybe you go Mahomes, Rodgers, Allen. Who's that 4th and 5th guy that you would take over Deshaun right now?
I mean, I'm not saying fiction yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think it's a fact. I think I put him at 5.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even 4. But it's just the games, the losses. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not all his fault. Few of them are, but
Yeah. Fair.
I
I
mean,
like that. Yeah. Definitely.
he's definitely not top 3. I mean, but that's established today. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Allen, Rodgers, Mahomes,
Yeah.
not in any specific order. But you think the Chiefs will run the table?
I think it's going to be a fact. I want to see an upset. It's just annoying watching how good this team is. This team is
It's annoying.
in my 18 years of watching football, this team is the most dynamic offense. I mean, I guess it's been the most dynamic offense these last 2 or 3 seasons, right?
Yeah.
But if someone can rattle Mahomes, which Miami's defense did a little bit in that first half, not
I
even.
mean, those Chiefs. I mean, granted, it's really hard to go 14-1. I wouldn't call them 14-2 on the year, just because it was a Chase Daniel game, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean that's hard to do, and obviously you're not going to win every game cleanly. But I mean, there were some ugly wins, like the Falcons win. I mean, they
sure.
almost went to OT off the missed kick.
Yeah,
Chargers win earlier in the season, super ugly. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of games. I mean, for them, it's 3 games, but I mean, if they don't show up to play in any one of those games, it could be anyone's game.
yeah.
And I think the Packers will beat them if they don't, if they make it to the Super Bowl, which I think they will. So I'm gonna call fiction there.
Yeah. So Steph is still a top 5 player in basketball.
I mean, huge 62 drop.
Yeah.
But no. I think
Um,
I mean, maybe right now, like if you were to just put a guy on the floor and you'd say, here, Steph is top five. I don't think opinions will be the same by the end of the season. And I think that's more opinions, not just who I think are the best players. I think there are a lot of players playing better than him right now.
yeah.
For example, two guys I mentioned earlier, Sexton and Young. But and then there's I just don't really see anybody else. PG is playing well.
Yeah. I think in terms of influence on the game and value to his team, Steph is maybe, I think, number one. But in
Definitely,
terms
yeah.
of being a top five talent, I think he's right there. I don't know if he's top five. I think you have to put
Definitely top
KD.
10. Maybe top
Well, definitely top 10.
top
I
8,
think
top
right
7.
now, I think it's a fact just because I don't see someone like AD being more valuable than him and controlling the game he does on his own. Um, but someone like LeBron, KD, I think Giannis, and maybe even Kawhi, right now, I think you have to put ahead of him. So it'll
Uh,
be tough. I think he's right around there. I think
he's-
Tim and Harden no battle for that fifth position, but I'll go fact just off of the 62.
I mean, he definitely is like from just like a team value standpoint, he's definitely at least top 3. Very well would give him the one spot and not complain. But from a talent perspective, I mean, I'd say fact from a value standpoint, fiction from a talent perspective.
I agree.
All right, so that just about wraps up today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Teddy Schellbach.
Max Trahan.
Have a good day.